Welcome to the November 1st Budget Meeting Courts System Corrections Program. Courtesy of the floor. With none being said, we'll move on. We've got a little change in the agenda. We're going to go right to court administration. Okay, courts and, we're going to do the graph 95, guys, in your book. Proposed 2024 operating budget for systems, court systems and corrections program. Take your time. No, we got the first one's 95.
You got the graph.
The graph first. I will. Okay, before we go on to that, I'd like to acknowledge that the President Judge is here with us today. How are you today, Your Honor?
Okay, thank you, President Myers.
You make me feel small. Okay, anybody have any questions on page 95?
I would just like to say that I'd like to thank President Myers and the commissioners for entertaining our budget presentation today. And Badway Bolus, who's our fiscal person, will be here to answer any questions you have. And if I have to provide any input, I'm happy to do so. Okay,
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Sounds good to me.
Judge?
Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. Let everybody know who you are and we'll proceed.
Yes, my name is Badway Bolus.
Anybody have any questions on what we're looking at in the systems on the graph? If you want to explain anything on 95, do you know what we're looking at in our book? Okay. No questions on 95 or 96?
Excuse me.
Yes, Ron, go
I mean,
ahead.
I know you mentioned and I read that it's going to go up operating expenses, but I'm sure we'll be breaking into that as we go through each area. Operating expenses up 10%.
Okay. Yeah, the courts would be on page 125.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
All right, I'm looking at page 96.
Yeah, is that a summary for the entire?
That's the summary for the entire.
And that was
That's
my
everything.
question.
I can answer that question, Mr. Bullios cannot.
It was a very simple question. Overall court system and corrections program summary. All right. It says expenditure by category at the bottom. Operating went up 10.2%. I said, I assume, which I could be making.
Yeah, that includes more than court
would be-
administration.
Would be explained as we go through each area.
Yes, absolutely. And that include, like he said, it includes more than court administration. So you will see where those increases happen.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I don't even remember anymore, so that's fine.
If we don't have anything, we're going to move right to room 124.
Okay.
Blue book. 120 in the blue book. 124 in the white, 120 in the blue book. Oh, we good now?
Court administration.
We'll have the court summary, which is on 124. And we'll go to court administration on 125. So there, is where we're at, folks. You want to look at 124 first? Have any questions on the summary? 124. Yes, John?
I had a general question. My understanding is
White
that
book.
as a result of the state budget impasse, that there's been an issue with court fees and the collection thereof. Are you aware of that, and has that, I see Judge Daly shaking his head.
Yeah.
Could you tell, has that affected your revenue, and what's going on with that?
Yeah, specifically, that's in the adult probation supervision fees. So I believe a law was passed maybe a year or so ago that does not allow us to violate the terms of probation for anybody who does not pay court costs. So basically, it's translated in a decrease in our revenues.
I'm sorry.
Supervision fees.
I made the judge get up.
I think you're speaking about the failure to pass the fiscal code bill.
Yes.
As part of the state budget. And that was passed in the state senate last week but by a 50-0 vote, and the House concurred in those amendments yesterday.
So we,
Monday. So those fees now are reinstated. So what they did is they lost from July 1 through the passage of the fiscal code bill,
okay, so.
which creates a hole in the state budget. The state judicial budget doesn't really impact.
It does not affect
right.
your collection of fees?
Right. Well, we couldn't collect the fees, but the fees went to the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts.
And we're not going to recoup that? It's just,
I'm not sure. I mean, some of those fees come back, I think, in certain, I mean, Badway may be able to address that. But it really impacts the state judicial budget as opposed to our local budget. But that issue's been resolved now with the passage of the fiscal code.
okay.
Yeah.
It's only November, so.
Yeah, I know.
Anybody else got any questions on 124? If not, we'll move to Court Administration 125 and 120 in our blue book. Questions? Yes, Ms. Zirinsky.
That the budget changes are due to an anticipated higher volume of transcript requests. Why do you anticipate that?
It would be with the volume of court cases?
Because it's gone up here. There's one line item.
Is
where
that the
it's court
$12,000
reporter.
amount?
There's one where it says it's gone up 43% for the court reporter transcript
Yes.
fees. And then the electronic monitoring has gone up 400%.
Those amounts fluctuate from year to year. That's just the way it is.
Okay.
There is no real specific reason for it I can point to. It's just, the percentages seem high, but we're dealing with smaller numbers, so.
But it's an anticipated cost, so if they fluctuate, it seems like there would have to be some reason why you anticipate it fluctuating that high, 400%, 43%.
Well, for instance, the electronic monitoring, you might have more individuals that are on the electronic monitoring that are paying the fees associated with that.
Okay,
It's very random, is what it is.
okay. Random, write that down.
Ms. Farr, Hefner?
I don't have a question, but I have a request, and I'll ask it each time. So it says intergovernmental overall. Will you be able to articulate what parts of your program maybe come from state level or external
Yeah.
funding versus what we're internally? Can you give the breakdown? Because I'm not quite
Okay.
able to follow that in this book.
So-
So that's just my request as we go along to each department.
Okay.
But because I know that I hear at some of the meetings I attend that there's grants or we're looking for this, so where, do they pay for salaries? Do they pay for programming? Like, wherever you can help me.
Would you like to go through some of these here right now?
If you have them, sure, that'd be great.
Well, the first line, the larger line item is the court reimbursement one. And those are state funds. And they're used to fund the judicial operations.
Okay. So what kind of things come under that?
So that would be the judicial law clerks, judicial secretaries.
And that's just for the folks in this building, correct? That doesn't extend to the magisterial offices. They have their
No,
own,
no,
right?
it would-
It's just for here.
Yeah, it's actually, it's supposed to be $70,000 per judge. But the state does not fund the full $70,000. They haven't done that probably in 5, 6 years. So that's how that figure comes about.
Okay. Is there a reason they don't, if that's what it's supposed to be? I mean, that seemed like the obvious question. Maybe it's too obvious.
Yeah, I mean,
want
statutorily,
it.
it's written statutorily that it's $70,000 per judge. They say the funding isn't available, is what they say.
It's like the
Okay.
school districts.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to magisterial judges, 126 and 122. If you have any questions, go ahead.
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Cusack?
What's the status of the current leases, and do you anticipate any relocations?
I don't think we're relocating any of the offices. I haven't heard anything about that. The leases expire, you know, they don't all expire at once.
I know that.
Yeah, so
But are there any that are coming soon that you?
I'm not aware of it off the top of my head. I don't really know, but
We just had one changed last year. Yetter,
Yeah, and the one in South Bethlehem moved recently as well.
yeah.
yes.
I know the monthly fees, the monthly lease payments, some of them are tied to the rate of inflation. So those will probably see some increases in. But it's not every year, so they're every other year, every third year, the lease payments change.
Any other questions? Yes, Lori?
I'm waiting, let me see. So each office gets the equivalent amount for staffing, et cetera? Is it, if there's how many different offices and are they all the same or are they different staffing needs? How does that work?
I think some of the offices with less volume might have less technicians working there, less clerical staff.
And are they union employees?
They're union employees, yeah, the clerical technicians.
That's it, thanks.
Okay. No other questions. We'll move on to the law library, 127, 124. Questions?
Just actually a question.
Your mic's on.
Yeah, yep. And just in general, I'm just curious. I was going through the other day, I read operating, this is the law library, operating expenditures decreased primarily due to an anticipation of fewer funds being needed for legal publications. Is that just, is there anything beyond that in the sense of that you just don't anticipate?
This year, we went to more of an online format, digital format, so it's less actual physical publications.
Oh, so I see. So in other words, just like I know in other areas, they're digitalizing certain things.
Yeah.
So the actual idea of online, that's affecting the courts too, and that you don't really need to get necessarily a publication. In the past, you might have gotten, now you can go online and it's available to the,
That's correct, yes.
okay. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay. Yes, Mr. Brown.
Just a comment in general, in going through the budget, one of the challenges, some of the questions being asked, 10% increase, 8% increase. The challenge is, that's a comparison of budget to budget. So taking the 23 budget, whatever numbers we're looking at for the 24 budget, and the same we're increasing it 8% or 2% or 3%. But if you go and actually take a look at the actual projected for 2023, that's more realistic as to what the either increase or decrease in the 24 budget request is. So it's, I find this, the way the budget's put together is challenging because you don't really know at the end of the, until you get to the end of the day, how much of the 23 budget was actually spent. And then why are you asking for, in some cases, it may show 10% or maybe actually 13% over the 23 actual that's there. So I just want to point that out to my colleagues, that as you're looking at these numbers, it's deceiving, I believe, to just look at the percent increase, because unless you're comparing it to the 23 actual, and then actually the better approach from my perspective, is just a way of looking at it, if you look at the trend line between 22 and 23, and then you can take into account what they're asking for in 2024, I think you get a more realistic feel for what the department may need going forward. So I've looked at just a couple of these, and some of them are higher, and so it's really hard just to take a look at it in a snapshot perspective. So just a general comment on how the budget was put together. I'd much rather see a budget created off of the projected actuals for the 2024 budget. It's how the administration gets to choose how they want to do the budget, but I think that's what you're not getting is feel for how much cash is available or not based off of the way the budget was performed overall. So it's you got to do a little more legwork to figure it out. So, but sorry for the interruption.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on. Domestic relations? That is 128, 125. Thanks, Lynn. Anybody has any questions, feel free to ask
I
now.
think I have a question for Steve. I'm sure I'll get an interesting answer. So this is the first place I noticed the long-term debt is in this part of the budget, where
What-
it hasn't been
For what is that?
under domestic relations.
Yes, long-term debt is in there because when the domestic relations building was built, the long-term debt, there was in some of the general fund as well. So where buildings are built out, where there's another component entity of the government that occupies that space, where there's a partial reimbursement, you will see that we charge the debt to that service through the cost allocation plan.
How long ago was that building done?
Oh, that was
I would say 10 years ago, maybe?
yeah. So we're getting towards the end. And some of our debt is actually lapped. So certain buildings are dropping off while there's still some on there, depending on how the debt is wrapped around each other.
Right. And then, who else is in that building besides this department? They're not the only ones in that building?
Just domestics in that building, yeah.
Okay, so that was the question.
Yep, that's it.
Thanks.
I have a question. Just
Proceed, Mr.
We're not talking about a lot of money, but I was just curious with the fees, fines, and it does say about going down the elimination of fee services from the Title IV-D program. Was that what was being referred to earlier, or is this something different? I mean, because
for
the
domestic
40 is
relations?
fed, you're right, the 4 is federal. It says under budget changes, it's decreased due primarily due to the elimination of fee revenue from the Title IV-D program. And while I said it's not a large amount in and of itself, percentage-wise, it looks big, but
Yeah.
what was that about? What
Well,
happened?
Title IV-D, I see we're projecting it to actually increase next year, so I'm not sure.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, maybe let me just double check.
3%.
I'm seeing an increase in that funding source.
Payments, power,
But you're not wrong, because.
Fee
under-
fines charged in domestic relations, it was, it's showing a decrease of $5,100.
Okay.
You see where I'm
I
at?
see what you're saying, yes.
I'm sorry about, it said, and then it says, fees, fines, charges, and miscellaneous decreased primarily due to the elimination of fee revenue from Title 4D program. I'm reading.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I see what you're saying.
I just wondered, why were they eliminated, or what was the cause or reason? If you can give me one,
Yeah, I can't tell you for sure what's going on with that. I'd have to find out from domestic relations,
all right.
since they prepared those numbers, actually.
I guess I was just wondering if something changed, as I know it was brought up earlier when Mr. Kusick was discussing something. I was just curious about if there was a law changed, you know, if they
I don't
changed
believe anything
that.
changed as far as a law in this funding source.
Okay, the elimination of fee revenue. It's just, you know, sometimes you'll see reduced or increased,
Yeah.
but to see elimination, it's,
I can find out and get back to you.
yeah, and
on
I
that
guess,
one.
you know, I'm guessing that's at the federal level then that they decided to eliminate it. And going forward, I just wondered how that would be an impact of, I mean, you were budgeted in 2023, 20,100, and for 2024, 15,000. So, and then I read that down there, and it's not, like I said, it's not a huge amount of money, but if I see something that's certain words over the years, I key in on it. I just saw elimination of something, and I thought, well, what's that
I'll look into
about?
it and definitely get back to you on that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I'll
I
check
mean,
with
it's not-
domestic relations.
Yeah, I just like to stay on top if the state or the feds decide to change something or eliminate, I mean, and then it rolls down the hill to us, and,
I understand.
okay, thank you, I appreciate it. That's all, that's the only question I had.
But that's somewhat confusing, because if you go over to 125 in the blue book,
Yeah,
it is a 3% increase in the governmental.
I'm, no,
In the government revenue.
Title 4D.
Title 4.3, on
3%
page 125, it shows a 3% increase.
Yeah. My guess, the decrease you're referring to is more what individuals that get referred to domestic relations, what they pay.
okay.
Yeah, I don't believe it's a state or federal issue.
All right, well, you know what, you said you'd look into it.
I would,
get
yeah, I'll
back.
definitely look into it and I'll get back
That's
to you.
fine, I don't want to hold up the wagon train here for that. I just, certain words, you know, the elimination of fee revenue from Title IV-D, and I know how important these programs are, you know, both in the court and especially like in human services. So certain things like jump out at me, because then I think I have to, you know, find out if I need to talk to somebody at one of our representatives at the state or federal level, say, what's going on? Or call somebody. But thank you. I'll wait to hear from you. That's
Okay.
Mr. Brown, are you done, Mr. Heckman?
Yeah, on page 128 in the blue book, under expenditures personnel, this is an example of what I was just referring to. In
In the blue book?
personnel costs, white book, I'm
Right,
sorry,
Thank you.
my apologies.
Yeah, I was like,
In 2022, you spent 4.2 million, projecting about the same for 2023. The 2023 budget, there's $403,000 of unspent budgeted monies in that line item. And then you're asking for an additional $173,000 in 2024. So if you look at, compared to the projected 2023 finish, you're asking for $576,000 on top of what you needed this year for personnel, and that's closer to a 13.6% ask. And the question really is, Why?
Yeah, so the unspent amount from 2023 basically is due to vacancies. We don't budget for vacancies, we budget at 100%. So that,
But are you going to have those vacancies filled in 2024?
it's been,
I-
most
And then
likely there will be vacancies.
What's the 173,000 additional funds for then on top of that?
Well, the additional amount would be the normal increase that the employees get per the collective bargaining agreements. It would also be for the increased benefit costs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, you know what, I want to tie in with that, Mr. Barron. I know we've talked about this in the past. Certain areas of government, when we used to put budgets together, it was pretty much standard to budget for 100% full employment, which has never occurred. And even if it does, somebody could be hired in April or May, but that was the standard, 100%. But then it changed because certain areas of the government, or certain areas you could say, we're allowed to budget for X amount as opposed to 100%.
Only at Graysdale,
And that's still only at Graysdale.
only at
So
Graysdale.
other than Graysdale, including the rest of you,
Oh, and 911, I apologize, that is
all right,
correct,
so
911.
Graysdale or 911, but
The jail?
No, not the jail.
so other than those two areas, and that includes human services, otherwise, you have to budget 100% full employment for all open positions.
Correct. If we're going to advertise a position, we tell county council that we need the position. County council is in charge of position control. They approve the position. We would definitely like to hire in those positions, therefore we budget for them.
Thank you, and so I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page. Thank you very much. That's it for me.
Okay. Juvenile justice. 129, 128. I'm sorry, juvenile probation. I'm having a senior moment here. I'm entitled. Anybody have any questions for 129 or 128? Do you know if juvenile probation is fully staffed?
We have 2 vacancies. No, we have one vacant JPO position. So at one point, I believe we had 4 or 5. We just hired 4 in the past few months. And we just had one person resign a few weeks ago, and that's the vacancy that we have right now.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll move on to adult probation, 130, 130. I'll ask the same question, staffing. Where are you at there?
Yeah, so we are fully staffed in adult probation. We did have 1.6 open positions. We had a number of employees retire, all within a few months, but those positions have all been filled. So we're fully staffed in adult probation.
That's always good to hear. Anyone else have questions? Ms. Var, Hefner?
So it says the intergovernmental decreased as a result of a rule change to offender supervision fees
Yes.
being remitted back to the state?
Yeah,
Is that what you referred to?
yes, that's sort of what I was referring
Taking some more
to.
back. Okay, could you,
Yeah, so the old way of doing it was the offenders would pay their fees, their supervision fees, which amount to $10 per month. And the county would send back half of those fees that are collected to the state and keep half for the county. At some point, the state would end up returning the half that we sent back to them, back to the county.
at some point when?
Usually 6 months later, 6 months to
They
9 months.
do.
They do, they always are doing that. But that whole process has been eliminated. So from now on, the county keeps 100% of the fees that are collected. And that's why you see that decrease in the intergovernmental section, the large decrease. Now, there's still some cases that are lingering under the prior rules, so we'll still see some of the money coming back from the state, but those will eventually go away. And what I was saying, in general, those fees are decreasing because under new state legislation, we're unable to violate the terms of probation for non-payment of court costs. So now they have less of an incentive to pay their fees.
So what's the consequence for that?
Well, the consequence is less money for the county, less supervision fees.
This might be a question for Judge Daly, and I don't know about it. And I've been reading about this, I've seen on the news about the fees not having to pay. Is there going to be a means test on that, or is that just was that a blanket change in the rules as far as what people pay or don't pay? I don't know. Because I mean I can see certainly affecting going forward as years coming up too. It's going to affect your budgets with the changes. About in other words, you have to provide the service whether they pay or not. Is there any? Do you have any provisions that you make when that comes up?
The rationale is that people were being violated and sent to prison based upon inability to pay court
Right.
costs. So basically, you had a debtor's prison that people were being locked up.
Yeah.
So what the criminal clerk does is they can file a judgment against the defendants for outstanding court costs, and you can collect it in that fashion. They turn over a collection agency, and that's how it's collected.
Oh, okay. So
I'm not sure what the success rate of that is. I guess Mr. Barron would know, but
yeah.
but that's how it's.
No, and I hear what you're saying. I mean, I know that I was following some of it's been going on about the debtors and people shouldn't
Right.
because they can't afford it. And then I just wondered when you get into that situation, if, there's a
So it's
means
collected.
test. But I hear what you're saying. They'll affect the judgment. Now, if you can't satisfy the judgment, then that's that. But if you can satisfy the judgment, then I would assume it goes, I would say, to a collection agency and then.
So it's collected by civil means as opposed to criminal means.
Okay, thank you, that's
Yeah.
clears it up for me. I
And,
appreciate it.
and while I'm up here, if I could just go back to what Mr. Kusik's question on, so I was able to look up some notes that I had. So the loss of those surcharges amounted to $9.25 million by mid-October. So it's probably, closer to 10 by the end of October. And that's 20% of the entire that portion of the judicial budget. And 75% of the judicial budget is county-based. So it flows back to the magisterial courts, municipal courts, common pleas courts. However, it's really the responsibility of AOPC to decide how they make that money up. So as I stated before, our line items haven't been impacted by that loss of revenue. But doesn't mean that they couldn't be, but they haven't been. So.
I have a question before you go, because you're talking about the not paying fees. Does that affect domestic relations? 'Cause if somebody doesn't pay their support, they still go to jail.
Yeah, that's different.
I've always thought that was an effective tool.
Yeah, that's a different line item in the budget.
Okay. I was like, hold up a second, how many of these guys are getting away with not paying support?
Unless they have a very good lawyer or something.
All right. Any other questions on adult probation?
I do, but I don't know how to ask it.
You open your mouth and you ask the question.
I know, it's November already. What are we doing here?
Okay, go ahead.
I guess I'm going to make an assumption that the way probation is done has changed pretty dramatically over the past few years, and that there's a lot less, I assume there's less face time and there's more monitoring, or is that a faulty assumption? Because I see there's like more equipment and fees for equipment in the budget, so, can you speak to that? And are they required to pay the the person on probation, do they pay for if I have to start my car with one of those gizmos, or if I have to wear a bracelet, am I paying for that, or
Oh, yeah.
assuming that, yeah? Well, I meant me if I'm the probation
yeah.
person.
They're assessed a $10 per month fee for all those costs.
That, just through the duration of their,
Yeah, so if it's 12 months, they're assessed $120. They get added to their court costs.
that's,
Anybody else? Let's go to problem-solving court. $131 and $132. Mr. Goffredo.
How many vacancies do you guys currently have right now, problem-solving courts?
We don't have any vacancies.
So I'm looking at your personnel, and your actual in 2022 was 259, and your projected for 2023 is 156.
Yeah, we did have a vacancy at some point, but it was
hasn't
filled a
filled.
few months ago, I believe it was.
Thank you.
Mr. Cusack.
The Pennsylvania opioid settlement, is any of those funds, could they potentially be used here in the problem-solving courts as revenue?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that.
I,
You can come on up, Mr. DA.
Yes, I believe that the potential is there to use.
Terry, you got to come to the mic so everybody can hear.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
I believe the potential is there, Mr. Cusack, for that to be used. I know that the settlement that we received, I turned it over to the county, and it's used 100% for drug abatement. I did inform Stephanie and Problem Solving Courts about that money, and I think they're in some conversations now with the county with respect to whether or not they can use some of that money.
Yeah,
And there's more money coming.
yeah,
There's
I think
different
it would
ways.
make sense.
Yes,
Thank you.
I agree.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions on problem solving? Yes,
so does that mean that the PCCD grant is complete, done, and there's no more money coming, or?
So we have two PCCD grants. One of them, which has been renewed consistently from, I believe, going back to 2017. It expired in September, at the end of September this year. So that funding has disappeared. We still have one other grant still available to us through PCCD.
So it's being applied, or are you saying you're still using it?
It was used in 2023. So I believe $70,000 of that grant was part of the 2023 budget. So that amount is no longer being budgeted in 2024.
So are those to be used just to start up these programs, and so now if they're established, they go away? I'm looking at the boss.
What Mr. Wilson's saying is that the PCCD didn't offer any grants in that arena. So we do get a TCAP grant that pays for a portion of a probation officer and also pays for the contract with the TCAP provider, Treatment Trends. So we still receive those funds.
Are there any other sources that are available? I mean, because I assume that I assume these are successful programs. So does the state have any other offerings or other
Well, at
revenues?
present, PCCD doesn't, but doesn't mean that they won't come out with another round of funding. And primarily, that funding was used for drug testing and training, really.
The AOPC also has a few smaller grants.
Smaller grants.
They're about $20,000.
So these are just for the two, for the,
And then.
In PCCD, yes. It's
well,
just those
but the
two
problem-solving courts incorporate the mental health and then.
Recovery
As well as
and soon to be veterans.
that was going to be my question. So that is being established?
Yes.
And when do you hope to?
Well, Judge Slepfeld's in charge of that, and I think she, just spoke to her the other day, and she expects to have that rolled out sometime in January.
The Veterans Court?
Yes.
Go ahead, I'll surrender.
Judge, so, just so I understand, the opioid money that came down in settlement, I got the impression then that you said, or not you, you said that it could be used for parts of the things you do in problem solving in the DA. That, I mean, could this be used in problem solving court for some of the things that are directed to be done?
I think the potential is there for it, yes. I mean, it's very narrowly,
Yeah.
the money that we received in the opioid settlement, and it's still coming in, it went to the county, received some, and then district attorney's office received some. The courts didn't get any. I turned our portion over to the county because they could oversee the entire amount. And I also instructed the problem-solving courts to contact them in the hopes that they could offset some of that. Because again, it's strictly used for abatement. We can't use it for law enforcement, anything like that. And I certainly think that the problem-solving courts would fall under that, you know, because they're rehabilitating the people that come before them.
I mean, they have programs too. and-
Correct,
and
correct.
things,
So I did have conversations with them and told them that this money was coming in and they should speak with the county about possibly offsetting some of their,
Thank you.
yep.
Mr. Barron, has that come up as a discussion with, because I know you guys are holding the money.
I take you back to Lori's question at the first budget meeting. That would be a great question to ask a Human Services when Drug and Alcohol's up here, because they're in tune with all the regulations. They are filing the reports. They are managing that money, and the district attorney has allowed us to keep doing that for him to help his department out. So you want to ask them those specific questions, they'll be able to answer that for you.
So they'd be the ones to ask if I say, hey, the courts have a problem-solving court system where they provide services. Have you contacted them, or has there been dialogue as to how they might be able to use some of this money?
Yeah, you'd have to ask them. Again, I know that some of the dependency courts work hand in hand with Human Services on several levels. So I can't say, and I don't want to promise council, yeah, you can use it for this, and then not have it be eligible for some reason. So you, again, ask the experts when they're in front of you. I think that's next week. Yes, next week is their budget hearing, or maybe in 2 weeks, I'm not sure.
Thanks.
Yep.
Question?
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Wouldn't, part of the problem-solving court and the diversionary courts was really to provide the services that the individuals need, not just have them sit in jail. But at I don't know what our daily cost per inmate is, you know, but even if you use $130 a day, have we looked at those funds as being channeled, or a portion of those funds to be channeled back into these programs to support and continue to expand your ability to provide services? And then a corollary to that, and this will maybe when the district attorney comes up, the DUI monies that are collected, or any of those monies channeled into similar programs into the courts?
I don't believe that's something I can answer. Steve, do you have any input on that?
Are you talking about the money from?
Well, the premise of the problem-solving court was to alleviate the pressures on the prison. And I don't know what our daily cost per inmate is today for the prisoners, somewhere around, $120, $140 per day. Were any of those monies then considered to be channeled back to the courts to further expand their ability to support these programs?
I think one of the things you'll find, and we are going to talk about the corrections budget today. Mr. Castor is here, Director Castor is here. He could probably answer that a little bit better. Part of the challenge we're having at the jail right now, and not to preview that budget, is the cost of the inmates that are in there for their medical expenses. If you read through if you've read ahead in your budget book. So while I would like to say that has lowered the residency over at the jail, I don't necessarily know it's lowered the expenses because of certain other situations that we have at the jail, because you take the inmates as you find them, which I don't want to blow that, no spoilers, but you'll understand as we talk more about prison medical along those lines. So while we have probably realized some savings with regard to less inmates at the jail, I'm not really sure what the daily population is, and if that would have been higher, that some of these people were diverted, which I think is what your question is, correct?
Correct.
The problem with that is that some of our inmates have become remarkably more expensive to house them there, even though they're short-term.
Yeah, well, I guess we can take that question up when.
Yes,
when
we
the
can.
prison comes up. However, I would state that on the program that the courts have need to be looked at and evaluated independently. I get the challenge with the prison's budget as an escalating cost, and that's well, we can have that conversation. But I think, Lori, to answer your question about where additional funds could be drawn from in order to further support and expand the courts program here, and as we're taking on more and more the population that need the work, it's just a place to look. We'll have to dig into it, but I wanted to point that was the whole premise when we initially, Judge Stalley wanted to even establish these programs. That was an initial place we looked at, is how we might be able to benefit and support the courts.
And I may just add, as far as the problem-solving courts budget, under the salary line items, those are probation officers, and they would be supervising a caseload if they weren't with problem-solving courts. That's where their duties are earmarked for. But that expense would be, somewhere else in the budget if it wasn't problem-solving courts. So. 'Cause we have two probation officers that are designated for recovery court and one for mental health court, and just a portion of the mental health court. 40%. Right.
Just since the initiation of these programs, can you just ballpark, how many individuals have gone through the programs?
Mental health court, we've had 102 graduates to date, and recovery court, we've had 100 graduates to date.
So you have over 200
Yeah.
individuals that have.
And the mental health court graduate rate is higher because it's a shorter program, and people, can at least achieve their maximum ability that they have. I mean, they achieve that level faster than someone that's suffering from addiction, although there's a lot of co-occurring individuals as well. But the purpose of the mental health court is to provide stability and treatment in the community, and once that person's stable, there isn't much more we can do. But that's our goal, is to have them stable and productive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Zirinsky.
I just had a quick clarifying question. I guess for Steve, Mr. Barron. So you had said that the opioid settlement management was deferred from the DA to the Human Services.
Yeah.
Will that necessarily change with a new DA? Could they?
No, we've signed over all of that. We've accepted all of that responsibility. I believe there's partnership and there's treatment throughout the county government that can be achieved. But the drug and alcohol team in Human Services, they have very good programs. They have the partnerships available. And I think you'll see a lot of collaboration going forward with that money.
Okay, but he also said that there are more funds coming,
Yes, there are.
and so,
There's one agreement signed, so there's 2 buckets of money.
Right.
Signed, 2 agreements.
okay,
Northampton County has taken custodial control of both of them, and the drug and alcohol is responsible for reporting on both of them.
okay,
So the only difference between the two is the county funds come to us without lawyer fees, meaning the lawyers take their fees first and then we get the money. The DA's funds, we get all the money and we have to pay the lawyers who help procure the settlement. Those are the only differences between the 2 funds. There are rules for both of them that are the same. It's just 2 buckets of money.
but for now, Human Services
They're
is
managing it, yes.
allocating those funds.
There hasn't, you'll have to ask Human Services.
Right.
There is some money that has been paid specifically out of the county's portion, I believe. But again, those questions are better asked, answered by them. I don't want to make any promises about anything and how that money's been spent.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we're going to move on to Juvenile Justice Center.
Question here.
That is 132 and 134.
I have a question.
Tara?
So I have a question. In the front of our manual, it says that there are 74 full-time and 12.5 part-time on page 15. Those are the approved positions from 2023 and the proposed positions from 2024. Those haven't really changed, but I noticed that the personnel expenditures have increased 284,700. Then, and that's in the white book. But then when you go to the blue book, it says that the salaries full-time have a budget change increase of 73%, but the union salaries full-time have gone down $570,200. So does that mean you have less union employees now and more career services at a higher wage? Can you just
What
describe
happened
that?
was, I believe it was last year, right around this time, we eliminated 15 youth care worker positions, which were union positions, and created 13.
That's when you did the supervisors?
Yeah, assistant supervisor positions, which were classified as career service. So that's why you have those dramatic changes in those two line items.
So you haven't,
So it's still in the same number of positions, 74 full-timers.
so 75 full-timers, but now they're getting a little bit more because they're not union, they're career services, because they're designated as supervisors.
Assistant supervisors, but they haven't been filled yet, those positions.
They haven't been filled. So you're just budgeting for them?
They're being
And these
budgeted
are,
for, yes.
okay,
Yeah, and we're in discussions with the county on that issue, and it's not a foregone conclusion that they're non-union. I mean,
Oh.
they could ultimately be union positions.
oh, they could be, okay. But those positions haven't been filled yet? So that issue hasn't necessarily been resolved then, even with an increase in pay. So I think the whole reason was, if I do recall this, that you needed to increase their pay to incentivize people to want to apply for those positions, right? But yet, the incentive is there, but the positions are not filled. So what more can be done in that area, and what has been done?
Well, I believe that the positions haven't been filled because the underlying contract for the youth care workers was just completed arbitration. So I believe that was a stumbling block to get the other issue resolved. My understanding is that our council and counties, the labor council are working on
Resolving that issue?
Yeah.
Okay, so when that issue is resolved, then we'll find out really what's happening with those positions.
Right.
Okay, because I know that was a big issue last year. We've had several visits from Mr.
Right.
Green, and
Be- be-
I would
because
like to
just
see
as
this
an
resolved.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
Because just as an example, the current starting wage is $17.11. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to $18.05 with the new contract for the youth care workers. The supervisor positions that were created were to start at $23. So there's a $5 an hour difference. But here again, that's work in progress.
It's all a work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you for that explanation.
Let's deal with the actual problem, that it's a state problem that we can't get employees there. So what makes us any different than anybody else? You know, I know they went to arbitration, and what we just did a resolution and we just approved it. So we got to wait and see what the seed produces.
Yeah.
You know, we've been told several times, there've been several over the last 2 years, so it's a slow-moving wheel.
If I could just add one other thing, I'm sorry to interject again.
No, Pete, that's why you're here.
So last year, we hired 11 full-time, or just this past year, we've hired 11 full-time youth care workers. 4 left, 2 went part-time, and 5 remain. So that's the challenge that we have.
So wait a second, can you say that again? You hired 11 youth
11
care workers?
Yeah, 11 youth care, 4 left, 2 went part-time, and 5 remain. And then because of lower staffing, we have higher overtime costs at about 150 hours per pay period of overtime, because we're backfilling with people that have their clearances, such as our adult probation officers. And as far as census goes, we have 14 in-county juveniles in detention and 4 in treatment, so we have 18, and we have 3 from out of county. And that's just simply a function of staffing.
And how many are we putting up in the private locations?
You have that number? Adjudicate care?
How many are we paying? All right, right now, I put a list together of how many kids we have outside and other locations. It amounts to $83,000 a month it's costing us to send 8 children out to outside facilities.
Wait a second. You're sending children out to outside facilities for $83,000.
Yeah, those are children that have been committed to residential programs that we can't serve within our facility because we don't have the staff.
Per month.
Per month, yes, that's what it's
So
costing
why
us.
wouldn't we use that $83,000 towards a salary?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how many,
I know what you're saying, I understand.
like, that's math.
Yeah,
Can I ask a clarifying question, please?
Go ahead.
Are all of those 8 children gone because of staffing, or do they require a higher level of care in some?
I would say most of them could be treated within our facility if we had the bed space, if we had the staff to open those beds. Yeah, they all could be,
That's your opinion?
yeah.
Okay.
Lori,
Mr.
can I follow up?
Please, yes.
I know in human services, excuse me, I'm sorry. Sir, it's amazing how much it costs sometimes because you have to find a specialized care for certain kids, children. And I know in the past, I can only imagine in the present what some of those costs are. That's why I'm not shocked when I hear certain numbers come up about a few children being, what it costs to care for them because it's where they have to have this or they just need certain things. I mean, you have cases with 24-hour care one-on-one. But when, in this instance, so your assertion is that I thought maybe some of this was because some of the kids that would be in the juvenile system, because I know the 2 systems, and that they would have to go to maybe a specialized treatment place above and beyond the Juvenile Justice Center. So when you say you think they could all be taken care of here, wouldn't that mean we'd have to have or install or instill a certain level of care or program? And judges, he's not even saying. I mean, I think some of that probably is in line with human services, and I know the judge knows about that really well, that some of these young people are in need of a very specialized service that we can't provide here. And I don't know if maybe cost effectively for their numbers if we ever could. Could you address that?
Well, and there are some juveniles that we can't treat in our facility, but so we have to look at placement outside of the county, sometimes outside of the state.
Right.
But you know, our model is to bring the therapists into the center and provide the services to those that we can treat. Now, the only 2 pods that we have open right now on the treatment side are for sex offenders. So we have 2 specialized treatment pods that are just for strictly juvenile sex offenders. So that's why we don't have the manpower to staff another pod to have some other kids that could be treated here.
So I know when Mr. Green was presenting, maybe the last time or one of the times on because we had a lot of discussions with the Juvenile Justice Center, that no question, I think the majority of people up here agreed that you want to keep local as much as possible. I think whether it's here or Human Services, your best bet is to treat and deal with here, because this is probably where they'll end up living and you know, family and other things. So we have the space. It's just a matter of being able to bring in the staff to work with
Right.
maybe some specialists that we would need to
Right. It's all-
hire.
That's correct. And also, I would say, as far as the, we're not in a position to accept many juveniles from out of county, only if they fit in, with, like detention. Obviously, we have staff, so we can take a child in detention. We have one from Wayne County right now in detention, and we have 2 out of county in treatment.
Yeah,
So they're in treatment because they're juvenile sex offenders, and we
Yes.
have beds for them. But we did raise the per diem rate that we charge from $290 to $385 a day.
yeah.
I know that was a concern in the past.
Well, and I know there was one of the concerns mentioned, and I know sometimes when I'm talking about this, it crosses departmental lines, but some of the juvenile offenders you're getting now, when you mentioned about sexual offense, they're on another level. It's gotten more and serious in many cases. I know when I talk to folks outside, they still think juvenile probation or juvenile justice is primarily truants.
Yeah.
And I sort of jokingly say, I think they only wish it were just truants. But so you're finding more young people coming in that need a lot more. All right. Yeah, and I think you covered what I was looking for.
And I know that the county commissioners have a lot of things to read, but I would like to share, and I'll provide this copy to your clerk. This is a study by the Pennsylvania Juvenile Court Judges Commission on the secure detention bed gap in Pennsylvania. And it tells you about the entire state, because it's not unique just to Northampton County.
Right.
Yeah, how many unfilled beds do we have in the center right now?
So we have 85 beds in total, and we're only staffed for 24 beds. So 24, staffed for 24. So that leaves 6 beds, I believe it is, or
So you
six
got
pods.
60 juveniles.
5 pods, 60, yeah, 60
And I
unfilled
believe
beds.
Mr. Green had spoken to the fact that, you know, given the right level of staffing, you would have no issue actually filling out and all those beds if we were able to do that. And being able to cover the cost by the contracts that you could enter into.
And
Thank you.
Yeah, not necessarily covering the entire cost, but it's a revenue source, no question.
Can I just ask-
Mr. Rinsky.
But you're budgeted for those employees, though.
Yes.
So what's the major barrier in acquiring those individuals
Well, I mean,
beyond the salary?
yeah, well, that's.
Is that the only thing? So what are other counties doing? If there's are other counties,
Counties have closed their facilities down.
right? Has any other county significantly increased wages or done anything different?
So we researched some of this. At Bucks County, they pay $27 an hour. I know that off the top of my head. I believe Montgomery County pays around $22 an hour.
For what?
For a youth care worker, a child care worker.
For a youth care worker?
Yeah.
And our youth care workers, you said we're making 17?
They'll be making 18
18.0
effective January 1st. The starting pay rate, 1807.
We have any other questions on Juvenile Justice Center? We'll move on to driving under the influence, 133 and 137. If anybody has any questions, just let me know. No questions on DUI? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go to we're going to go back, we're going to go right to the district attorney. Oh, Your Honor,
Thank you.
thank you for coming. We appreciate. No, thank you for taking your time. Mr. Hauk.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of council.
Wait.
Yep.
Who handles the council? Who handles the constable's courts?
Yeah, the courts, I believe, do.
I handle the constable.
Oh, you handle it? All right.
Okay, that answers that question.
Pipe up and say that.
Thank you.
Oh, where are we here? What page?
We are on page 97. I'm sorry, I didn't,
I think it's my page 86.
oh, we got,
Which one do I have?
Thank you.
hold on a second. Not yet, 86 in the blue and 97 in the white.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're in the blue book?
Yeah, it's not blue.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, everybody situated? Okay. Any questions on page 97? The summary. If there's anything you want to throw at us at this time, Mr. Hauk, feel free to while we're looking over your papers.
I would, excuse me. Sorry. Just out of curiosity, the budgetary fund balance, budget for 2023 was 60,000. I don't see anything projected for 2023, but
Okay.
2024, it's 37,000, a drop of almost 23,000. I'm just curious, could you, what's that about?
Under revenue,
Yes.
sir.
that's the domestic violence fund. That monies that come in through fees collected for domestic violence cases.
Correct.
So
And
we anticipate that's revenue. We anticipate that to be a bit lower.
quite a bit lower.
Yeah.
God,
Let's hope so.
Because your expenditures on that went down too.
yes.
Okay, you know,
That's
it's
a-
just
Open.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
dramatic. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else questions on 97?
Pretty straightforward.
All right, let's move to 98, the district attorney itself. 98 and 86 in the blue. Go ahead, shoot.
Mr. DA, how are you?
Good, thank you.
This sheet that was handed out has 3 assistant DA proposed salary structures.
Yes,
Is that built into the personnel here, the district attorney, in the budget?
yes. It's a little addendum that I would like to propose to you. If you want me to do it now, I'll do it now. Okay. I proposed my budget at some point after the budget was submitted. I was informed that there were, my requests for upgrades was taken out, which is fine, I get that. However, there wasn't any discussion about it. Had there been, I guess it would have came out that the request was for a little over $31,000. So as a result of that, I'm just requesting an addendum for council for the three people that are listed before you. Two of them, the first two are chief deputy district attorneys, the third is an assistant district attorney, to make the salary structure complete and in line in the district attorney's office, which I have confirmed with Mr. Devaney. And to take that money, that $31,000 from salary and fringes as it exists now, and that will be made up and literally made up in one pay period. So I'll be able to fit that in, not asking for any additional money.
So could you just, I'm sorry, repeat that last part again, where you propose that we take?
Salary and fringes. As you see by your graph, it's a grand total of $31,467 for salaries and fringes for the three individuals.
Questions?
So, I'm sorry. Am I
You're
recognized?
recognized, sir.
Thank you.
I can't help
It's
but.
important, I know I yelled. Anyway, I'm looking at your sheet.
Yep.
Terry, all right, so I understand the part where you put in for it,
Yep.
and it was taken out,
Yes.
all right? But you are asking to put it back in, which I understand.
Yep.
And you're saying that the money, you accounted for the money in the budget you proposed. You already had accounted for these salary increases.
Yeah, well, yes, it's accounted for because I can take it out of the salary and fringes because we're understaffed. So.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so we'll be able to,
Okay.
that'll be one pay period. By the middle of January, it'll be made up. So I don't need to ask for additional money.
So okay, I'm piecing together. You're
Yeah.
saying there's no way that these vacant positions will be filled in January, so the money will be there for this, the $31,000 will be available.
Yes, and if for some miraculous reason, and I would hope that we could staff it within 2 weeks in the year, there's money available in other areas as well. This has been extensively discussed with the budget and with Nick Devaney, and that $31,000 can be absorbed with no problem whatsoever. But for now, we can take it right from the salary and fringes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Kuzic?
Just follow up on that.
Yes.
How many vacancies do you have currently up in the office?
We have about 10. About 10, I think, right? That's correct. Yes, 10 vacancies.
What positions are those? Just ADAs?
Well, right now, yes, they're ADAs because as we just recently lost 3 chief deputy district attorneys to the United States Attorney's Office, which, by the way, was unprecedented. I've never had that happen. In a good way, it's unprecedented that attorneys of that caliber were accepted by the United States attorneys. I've never had that happen 3 in such a short amount of time. But when they left, this is part of the people that we promoted into their positions, Mr. Lupacchino being one of them. And the positions that are now available are assistant positions, yes.
Are these those people?
2 of them. It's Mr. William Blake, and that's Leonie Sharpstein. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for asking.
Well, I just wondered, they're nodding over here. I'm
Yeah,
like, who are
yeah.
these people?
They're sitting back there like this.
Yeah. So, okay.
Go ahead, question.
So why wasn't this approved? Like, why was it?
Well, I'm
why
sure,
was this-
Mr.
What was the,
Reason for it being
what
pulled?
was for the reason that these salaries didn't go through?
Well, I think Mr. McClure and Mr. Barron are just trying to balance their budget. I don't think, we didn't have any conversations. I think maybe if he knew that it was just for this amount, maybe there would have been a
But you're saying
reconsideration.
you already have the money. So if the money is already in.
Well, I don't think Mr. Barron knew that. I think he just
Mr.
kind of.
Barron
Well, I don't-
didn't know?
I can't, look, I can't speak for Mr. Barron. I can just tell you that when you have that, I don't, you know. Yeah, I don't want to speak for him.
Did you not know?
No, I know.
Do you want to explain?
I can.
All right.
So,
Is he allowed to explain? Because I just want to know, like, it seems like 30,000, like, what's the deal?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing either, frankly.
so, all right.
Well,
Well, that, if you're all in.
Yeah.
I will recognize you since I'm in a hot seat right now.
that's-
Explain.
So there's going to be a new DA in January. I don't know how fast he's going to fill those positions. I do not know any of his plans with regard to transition or what he's going to be doing, where he's going to be at. It is not good government, or it would be irresponsible for me to assume it could just come from salaries or some other line item in the budget. I believe that the budget has increased every year that Mr. Houck has been here. Part of the reason for raises is justifying keeping people here. Everybody in the DA's office got the 3.5% that all career service folks got. We did not put in any extra steps, okay? And part of the reason from a good government standpoint is those 3 people that left, we've spent over $400,000 in 2 years to retain people in the office that have left, including $32,000 plus in bonuses. And then the people who are being asked to get another step or given another step would have 3 steps or an increase of, 13.5% in 3 years, when the rest of the county employees in the career service got like 9. So from a good government standpoint, I just couldn't put that in the budget. Knowing that that DA Barada will now be taking over, I don't know when he's going to fill those positions, and I couldn't just take it from the salaries that have been promised to him when he takes over the office come January 1. So that's my explanation.
Well, he's not DA yet.
So Barada
Mr.
would
Swanhead.
inherit
He's going to inherit
whatever
this
the budget, so Barada inherits the budget and has to stick with it. And you're saying that come January, he might want to do something different?
Correct. Yeah, and
Well, maybe you guys want to go talk?
No,
I'm just kidding. But yeah, but.
Can I respond
I see what you're
to,
saying.
can I respond?
One of my rationale, that's it.
Can
okay,
I
now-
respond?
Now,
Mr.
now, hold on a second.
Okay.
He's answered your question. Are you done with him?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Thank
all right. Now, Mr. Houck, I'm going to allow you to respond, and I'm going to allow everybody else to ask you questions.
Yeah. Well, I guess good government is relative to who's speaking. Mr. Barron had no conversations with me about this, and if had he, I would have told him that throughout Pennsylvania, attorneys' salaries are obviously reflected as per each district attorney's office. The salaries that I proposed, and this, you can't compare these salaries to salaries of other people in the Northampton County. You must compare them with salaries throughout the state in other district attorneys' offices. And I have not found any persons with the experience that these 3 district attorneys have that have been making the amount of money they have. For example, Leona Sharpstein has 3 years of experience when she came in. She came in at the lower level. She actually took the place of a brand-new attorney who started here. He was in our office for 6 months and left to go to Lehigh County and got $4,000 more. Lehigh County is paying $4,000 more for entry-level positions. She came in with experience from another district attorney's office and started at the lower salary. I'm just trying to get her up to a competitive salary, and other attorneys like her to keep them. I want to make this transition as seamless as possible. It's important to do that for the people of Northampton County. And when you have 41 combined years of legal experience among Mr. Blake, Mr. Lupacchino, and Ms. Sharpstein, they have to be paid different than the comparisons that Mr. Barron are making. And again, I'm not faulting Mr. Barron, but that conversation could have been had he's picked up the phone. And when we're talking about $31,000, we're talking about for purposes of my budget, for what you're getting out of these three positions. You're getting a salary structure now that makes, that if not meeting everyone else's, at least is competitive to keep these people here. And $31,000 is a small price to pay and can easily be absorbed. I had extensive conversations with the budget people, and I have no doubt in my mind, because Mr. Baratta is going to have his own idea what he's going to do with certain things that I thought were important, he may not, vice versa. But $30,000 is an easy amount that can be done. We're down 10 attorneys, and by the middle of January, this will have been absorbed in that. I don't know what the motivation is, but I can tell you of the county, but I can tell you that this is good government. This is smart government, because these attorneys and these positions, more importantly, are needed, because even if these attorneys leave, you're going to have this position available to bring in an experienced or senior attorney.
Mr. Brown.
I just want to understand your logic.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 2024 budget, as been submitted, there's sufficient funds to cover these based on your current vacancies.
Yes, 100%.
Is the same hold true for the 2023 budget as you currently exist? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
So because these positions have not been included, the positions are included in 2024 budget, but at the lower rate.
Yes.
So doing a budget amendment doesn't really change anything for 2024. So I'm questioning more process than anything else.
Yeah.
Whether the approach would be to try to amend the budget, or just have you come before council and propose salary increases for these three now.
Well, I thought that's what I was doing. I thought, I'm sorry, it's probably, that's basically, I'm coming in and asking for these salary increases without asking for an increase in my budget, as I've done before. For you, I think that would be the easier way.
So are you asking for these now in 2023?
Well,
yeah.
I have it now, and I could do it now if that would make it easier. Our budget can
Well,
certainly.
that's what I'm trying to get
Yes, sir.
clarity on the ask
That's a different.
and the timing.
Okay,
of the ask.
good.
Clarification. This is a budget meeting. He can't ask for that now. He'd have to do it at a
No,
regular
I'm
council
not,
meeting.
I'm asking for a process, though, as it relates to the 2024
Right.
budget, and whether this is something, how we would implement the request.
Well, I'm prepared to wait until 2024 if I can get that done now.
I'm going to ask our solicitor to chime in on this for a second, because it's two different things.
Mr. Brown, as I understand it, the DA has said that he has the money. He will not be asking for additional money. I think he needs to come back to council and ask for the increases.
Great, thank you, that's the clarification.
It's if I want it in 2023, right? What about the 2024?
That's his budget. That's your budget.
That's your budget.
He wants it.
So I still got to come back?
Yes, this is just a committee meeting,
No.
This is a budget hearing meeting.
A budget meeting.
Yeah.
budget meeting.
Right.
There'd be an
I
amendment.
understand what you're saying.
He's,
So basically, you're saying that if you have this money in your budget already, you come to us and have a resolution that says that you would like to change the salaries of 3 employees at our next council meeting. But if you want the budget changed for 2024, that's a different animal.
Not asking that.
No, I am not asking. I'm just asking.
We have time before the end of the year. If you present that to council, I'm sure they'll consider it.
Mr. Myers, can I speak?
Yes, you can.
So I think Mr. Howe came here today to say this was taken out of his budget. Correct me if I'm wrong in this interpretation. And so he wanted to show us what he didn't get in his budget. Now, what Mr. Brown brings up is a solution that if he has it now and wants it now, he can't do. But as he said, you're here for the budget, so he can do it either way. It's his choice. But if you choose that you want to come back and ask for an upgrade, you can. I just want to point out that Mr. Cusick is always the first question out of his mouth would be, why didn't you do this during the budget process, and why are you asking for it now? So in fairness, I think it's good that he's here doing it now, and he has a choice.
Correct.
And now it's been outlined, and we're all aware. So I wouldn't chop his head off for doing it this way versus the other.
Yeah, I mean, that was I just wanted to let you know why I was coming for you. I mean, because
You can.
I see what you're saying. I mean, it could be approved for this year. I mean, I have no idea what the DA-elect is planning to do, you know, and that's going to be his decisions. This could be put in the budget. I mean, yeah, I'm sticking with the money part because, look, when we get into good government discussions, that's a billboard on the side of the road.
I'll say.
I mean, you know, if my decision is good government, your decision, if you disagree, is bad government. And I've heard that for decades now from different people. It's like, if I don't agree with you, it's bad government, but if I do, it's good. So that's irrelevant to me. I guess what I'm wondering, and this is the only concern I have, this isn't a big deal. I don't have a problem with giving the raises. It has to do with the fact that there is going to be a change. And I don't know how much change is going to happen. I don't think the incoming DA necessarily is going to
Blow up your budget.
go wild or feel you've destroyed the budget if we approve 31,000. I don't know the feeling. I heard what the Fiscal Affairs Director said. I'd like to know if we want to keep everything even across the board, if we could find out if all the department heads got 3.5% increase, or if any of them got steps. Okay. They all got 3.5%? So, because, I mean, some years, you know, things get put in for different people. This is why I've been complaining forever when we got away from our classifications, and now it's 1 year we do this, the next year we do that. I don't have a problem agreeing to doing this. Again, I have to also remember, in deference to the new person coming in, that they have their own idea. I mean, budget amendments we've talked about, and people do them all the time. But it's not the amount of money.
No, I get it. And I understand.
I have to agree that it's not going to, you're probably not going to see, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's going to be somebody jumping in the next, all the positions within the next few weeks.
And even if they are, there's other positions. I mean, I know that this issue, money-wise, is not an issue at all.
Okay, I don't know, I'm done.
Mr. Kusak's been very patient.
Just real quick, as an independently elected official, you are not required to follow the same process as
Yes.
the other
Thank you. Yes, correct.
departments.
Right.
So if you disagree, you have the right to come before council because council ultimately sets the salaries. So what you are asking council to do is review your recommendations for these three individuals. What will happen is when we get that big stack that we go through that first week in December, I would suggest that each of these be placed on resolutions and that we vote on it.
Thank you. And that was my
I
intent.
recognize some of these attorneys sitting here. They've been here a long time. They'd probably be senior partners in law firms by now.
Thank
And
you.
I think that we should consider this, and I would support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kusak.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Ferry.
Can I ask a question that has nothing to do with these salaries?
No. Next question.
But I'm going to.
Go ahead, yes,
Because
yes.
what's my favorite question to ask you at this time of year? I don't see it in the budget.
What's that?
The RIC. Where's are you funding the RIC? Are you proposing anything?
I put the proposal in, yes, it's in there for $100,000, right, Brandon?
I
It's-
don't
it's-
see it.
No, I know. Well, you had that question last, they hide it on us. Where it's there. I guarantee you it's there, though. Thank you for asking.
Can I be informed where it's hidden?
That make it easier to take out next year.
No, but how can I let Mr. Howe, and I not discuss?
Blue book,
6799 on his page, that's the line item.
What page?
blue book.
6799, page 87.
Yeah, it's
Under purchase services.
There you go. That's what it's at.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
It has $100,000.
$1,000.
you astutely asked that question last year, ma'am, and we probably should have
But
fixed
you know,
that.
people assume that I remember yesterday. I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to constantly
Nope,
be
I get it.
reminded.
We
So,
probably should have that
you know,
reworded.
A lot of things go on.
Yep,
And so that's at the same level of funding?
it is.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
I guess, well, no, I do, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So that's the RIC. What about the DeSales program?
That is also in there.
So,
There's $42,000 or $44,000 for that.
wait, so I'm confused. So how much they're all lumped together and so,
Yeah,
That is part of professional services because it's purchase services as it is used. $40,000 is in there for that,
40, is it?
yes.
Okay.
Where's it, Steve?
under the $195,000?
Is that where it's at?
What he
679,999.
requested, and there's $40,000 in there
Yes.
for that service,
As pursuant to a contract we have.
yes.
Got it.
So what is your staff number? Going
Well,
to
we
be?
have 21 positions, we have 12. Right now. Right now,
Wait, you have 21 and 12 are filled?
we have 21 and they're filled.
21 are all filled.
No, I'm sorry. We have 21 positions, 12 are filled.
12 are filled.
Yes.
And no one's at fault you when you have 3 people going to the United States government.
Yeah, it's hard to yell at them when they're making double the salary.
I have a
And
hard
they-
time comprehending when you get criticized when our people get to go to a higher office.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Damn. Okay. Any other questions on that part?
Anything else that we're missing?
Anything else that we're missing? But before we move on any further, I want to thank you for your years of service as I know you're leaving.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
But we still have more to cover. But I want to get that plug in before anybody else jumped on you.
Yeah.
Okay?
And thank
We're going
you.
to move on to the DI Processing Center, 99 and 89. Questions on the DUI Processing Center? Feel free. No one? All right, we're
Yes, I
going,
do have one.
go ahead.
Has there been a significant increase in the amount of personnel, or is that just salary increases? I know it's only 4% here, but
I believe it's just salary increase. We haven't had much of an increase in person. We've been fortunate to be able to keep them for the most part, so there hasn't been any increases, so
thanks.
you're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, let's move on to Victims of Juvenile Offenders, 191. Questions? From anybody? If not, we're going to move on to Rights and Services Act 10192. Mr. Cusack, my head was down.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not sure where this falls, but are funds being provided for the Lehigh County Child Advocacy Center from Northampton County tax dollars?
We take our children to the Lehigh County CAC, yes. And we did so under an agreement with them, and we get billed by them and pay pay out of our budget. So that's the plan, yes.
We had a lengthy council meeting
Right.
a couple months ago. And my thoughts are that I would prefer that Northampton County money not be sent there. So I'm not sure where the line item is, but at this time, based on what I heard, I wouldn't be in favor of that.
Well, we've right now, we haven't received a bill from Lehigh County, so we haven't had to pay anything yet. So they've been very good with everything that we've done, although we've joined them. I was also in the process of forming our own child advocacy center, which I was in the process of doing. Now that'll be up to the next administration if they want to continue on with that or not. But it was always the plan to do that. Now, it is critically important that the children have a forensic interviewer when you have offenses like this, for not only for their mental and emotional health, but also for the case. So there was, at that point in time, it was what we had to do, children and youth as well. They get to the person first, and they were taking them to several different CACs, and it wasn't the entire county, the entire population of child victims weren't being serviced. And when I joined the Lehigh County, at least temporarily, CAC, I did so with the intention of creating Northampton County. We made great strides, by the way, in doing that, because we had hospital personnel. We had the facility because it was going to be hospital-based, and I think I've had this conversation with you before. It just kind of stalled after the election, so.
Okay. Well, again, I was troubled by what I heard, and I would hope that we would either have our own or at the very least not be involved with theirs at this time.
Yeah, okay.
If I'm not speaking, didn't we go to Carbon or Monroe with that too?
Initially, they were run to Carbon, and the children were taken to Carbon and Lehigh, depending on who would take the child. But just to get some consistency and some some level of service for the children, we decided to do this with Lehigh County. Now, Lehigh County's been great. We haven't gotten a dime bill yet. But if and when the time comes, they want to start billing us, I would gladly pay it because the children need this.
Yeah, just to clarify, because when we discussed this a couple of years ago, they were going to Carbon. Go ahead, Tara.
So I just want to understand this. The children go to the Lehigh County CAC for the forensic investigation.
Interview, yes.
Interview after they've been abused or
Yep.
molested or something to that extent, right?
Yes.
That is a huge initial argument, like a huge initial step in finding treatment for them and making sure that their process goes through, right?
Well, the hospital-based program also gets them treatment as well. If there's a physical, they get checked for physical findings and things of that nature for evidence purposes, and also for treatment if they have some sort of infection or disease or things like that. So when they go there, it's multifaceted. It's not just about the interview. It's about having an emotional, calm place for these children. It's about a good place for their guardians, and it's a professional interview, which you need to have now in court. Right. You can't just have some random person question these children and expect it to be.
But the Lehigh County CAC doesn't make any designations about removing children, do they?
No.
Families.
No. See, children and youth are involved in this first, right? Our children
Right.
and youth. They'll take the child to the Lehigh County CAC. It's not me that does that. The officer does an investigation as well, but only the criminal portion of it goes to, us. So children and youth might send them to the Lehigh County CAC for just to figure out what's going on before it even becomes criminal.
So what happened to stall the Northampton County CAC?
Well, there's a lot of moving parts, and we had several meetings on it with children and youth, and the people at Lehigh Valley Hospital who've been great, really great, and it was moving along, and then it just kind of stalled. I don't
Not
really.
because of funding, just because of lack of inertia?
No, it wasn't funding. I think everything was in line. We were, actually, it was going to be great. We wouldn't have even had to ask for any money.
So do you have funding, so you don't have to ask for money to establish that CAC?
Not yet. If we had to hire somebody, we would probably have to hire a forensic interviewer. For that, I would have to ask for probably come before.
salary?
Yes, but short of that, no.
So none of that is in the current or proposed budget?
No, correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
So that would have to be, if that were established next year, that would have to be established by a proposal that comes to us to establish the
yes,
salary,
yes,
right?
correct,
From
yes.
the new DA.
If that's proposed, yes.
Right. But that is, and I agree, that is a really important part, because I think we all care about
Yeah.
the children in that situation, and no one wants to see a child get hurt.
Yeah. I mean, the importance of a CAC can't be, it can't be undersold here. I mean, I've been doing child abuse cases since 1987, and the difference between a child that's talked to by a police officer and one that's handled by a CAC is just night and day.
It's night and day, yes, exactly. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Heckman?
Yeah, and I, of course, nobody's going to say we're against child advocacy.
No, I get it, I get it,
And I
yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
and I know when Lehigh County was put together, I remember that, and there were discussions. I think when we get into this area, and we'll have to talk to Human Services, when their budget comes up too, I tend to lean towards what Mr. Cusick's saying. I'd like to see, I think we're large enough and big enough now that Northampton County
100% agree.
should have it, because it's child abuse has evolved over the years. I remember when doctors would say, you're going to have to subpoena me to get to say anything.
Yes.
I'm not coming in to see you guys. And now you've got mandated reporters, you've got everything. And it's good, but it's also complicated. When a charge of, any kind of charge of child abuse is leveled, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
And I know when listening to the parents and also watching the video of the Human Service Committee meeting that Ms. Hefner had regarding children and youth, I think one of the things that gets missed is the idea that any one person is just going to be able to take a child from a parent. I mean, ultimately, you need a court order.
Yeah, we don't have anything to do with that. Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah.
idea of taking a child
Right.
from the hospital, you better get it. I mean, I don't know if it's changed that much, but if you don't have that emergency court order, and the judges were generally, they wanted to know what it was, and they were going to just automatically believe the caseworker. You better have, some reason to take a child away from a family. But the CAC, I think some of the problems occurred because of, as I said, the moving parts. And internally, like a lot of things happen. Sometimes there were internal things. And I was telling Ms. Hefner at one point that, having been in human services, now and then you can get somebody who becomes, I like to say, a righteous warrior. Not that that's a bad thing, but that they believe, what you said, you need when you get into this area, you should have a solid forensic
Yes.
a person interviewing the child, coming in there with a straight-on mind. And if you get into a situation where people start to think there's an agenda, then you have a problem. And that's why I think we got into a situation. And I'm not pointing the fingers at somebody who was right or wrong. I wasn't in the middle of it. I just heard stories about it. But I do know that it is complicated enough that I would hope that we would again explore doing something within our county it's a very important area. It's important to the children, obviously. It's important to the parents. It's important to the society as a whole. So I would sort of lean in that direction. I don't know what the cost would be to set up. I mean,
It's
I haven't the
nothing to
biggest
set up.
idea.
It's nothing. And everybody, I think everybody has the same ultimate goal. This is not a finger pointing session. Mr. Cusick, I just want to clarify one thing. The budget that I come before you any monies that we would pay them does not come out of that. This comes out of the grants that is obviously part of my budget that our victim witness get. So that money would, at the time that we were billed, would have been taken from that. We did those numbers, and, based on how many cases we had and how many cases we anticipated having, and I wouldn't have had to come to council and ask for any money or anything like that. We were going to cover that through, in the hopes that eventually we were going to move to our own CAC. If I was unclear about that, I apologize.
Ms. Var, you have to.
That was my question, is where does that money come from? Would that come from this VOJO grant?
Yes.
Or is that, and that's where it is?
Yes,
And you're saying you haven't had any use to bill for that
not yet,
to
but,
date this year?
no, not yet. Yeah.
That's all I want.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to domestic violence, 10293. Questions?
So what part of this is yours versus what we just heard under domestic relations? So you're budgeting for what here? You just get the fees under domestic violence?
Yes, we do get money that comes in, and that's what this reflects. If a judge orders a criminal defendant to pay into this, we get it directly. If it's part of the court cost, then it goes to the county.
And is that also falling under the same difficulty as they outlined prior, that they have to pay, or they're not required to pay, or if they don't pay, they could still be released? I don't know if I'm we just heard that people can't.
Well, it becomes part of their sentence, and if they don't pay, then obviously that would be a violation of their sentence.
So they just said they can't keep them though.
Yeah. Truth be told, I don't think there's a lot of orders for this anymore, for the domestic violence fund. We don't rely on it.
Anybody else got any questions on domestic violence? None? Mr. Harrell?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure seeing you. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you all.
for your service.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
service.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sheriff Johnson?
The bathroom at some point. I think I'm gonna go right now before he gets.
Anybody need to take? Does anybody need to take a break?
He sang a song.
No. I was paraphrasing Eric Clapton, I'm sorry.
You know, when I bought a vehicle, my wife went out and the salesman's out there, I shot the sheriff. Because he knew what I did for a living.
I'm sure you've heard that a million times, and that's why I didn't want your guys to come up and put handcuffs on me as a threat or something.
Okay, we're at
That's
103
one of
and
those songs that's in
94.
your head all the time. Okay. Sheriff.
Sheriff Johnson, how's your compliment? Are you fully staffed?
How's that going?
We are not fully staffed. We are down 10 deputies.
Is that 10 full-time?
Well, when I started in 2018, we've had 13 retirements. So we're above the retirements right now. We just hired somebody in September, another person in October. We have 4 people that either have Act 120 or the military experience that we're setting up for interviews. And we just had another 30 people pass the written test and are scheduled or sending out invites for the first week in December. I want to thank Sherry Crispin again for getting this done. I think since I've been appointed the sheriff, we've had to at least have over 500, if not 600 applicants in those 5 years. So
Fantastic.
we have a lot of people that are applying. It's just a matter of the physical. We've changed. I set up that we would use the graduation rate because we have to send somebody away for 19 weeks. There is an entry level, but then if they don't get to that, then we're paying unemployment. So, but now we've decided, okay, we're going to go to the entry level. So now we're getting more candidates. Well, this will be the first time on the physical agility. Because we have people that are missing by, say, 5 sit-ups. So it's a matter of now, we explain to them, listen, it's going to be, that 5 sit-ups is important. We had a person who passed the graduation rate, went out to Penn State for 10 weeks, and then he failed the test, and they sent him back. So I didn't want to fall in that group. But now, because we need the people, it's real important to get the spots filled. We're going to do the entry level, and the other sheriffs use the graduation level as well. So it wasn't something that was out the window. It was, okay, let's do it. Now we're going to do this, and we're going to see, hopefully be successful, hopefully have a full complement by next year. In 2019, we had all the full-time positions filled. So we're trying to do that now.
Okay, so that's deputies. What about officers? Your lieutenants or whatever you have?
Lieutenant's full staff, and I had 2 retire, so we promoted 2 into that. We are down 1 sergeant, and that's because he has nobody to supervise. You know, until I fill those 10 deputy positions, he's just going to sit back and, you know, have it pretty easy.
Tough job. Yes, Tara.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like sit-ups?
Yes.
Like sit-ups?
Well, the test is the Cooper standard for law enforcement, and it's done by age. So somebody who's between the age of 21 and 29 has to do 38 of them. 1 minute. But you have, the entry level is, say, 33. We were using the 38. Unfortunately, this individual could only do 28 anyway, but it's just one of those things.
Tara, check your mic. I'm here.
Oh, sorry. No, I mean, is this a problem like the fitness test? Because I know that there's other things like in the military where they're having problems with fitness. Is this like an issue?
The fitness test is state required. I've
Right.
reached out to Eric Weeknick, the president of the Pennsylvania Sheriffs, because MOPEC was able to lower their standard. And he said we would have to go in front of the House and the Senate to get it approved.
So that we could lower our standards.
Right.
That doesn't sound good.
Well, when I say lower standards, like MOPEC uses
yeah,
a
but
30
for physical
percentile.
fitness, yeah.
And it used to go 30 percentile and go to the 50 percentile. Now they say you need to maintain the 30 percentile the whole time of the academy. The Sheriff's Academy, we use the 20 percentile, and you have to graduate at the 40 percentile. We still have to do the 40 percentile. MOPEC only has to do the 30.
So do sheriffs or anybody else have to take a fitness test every year to show that they've
No.
maintained their fitness?
No.
So it's just to get in?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, so you really only have to work hard that on the front end of this, and once you're in, you're good, right?
I wouldn't advertise that.
I mean, but that's what it sounds like to me.
I mean, I think most of these jobs, you have to do it one time, whether it's police, sheriff, fire department. Am I correct?
Yes.
There you go. Any other questions? Mr. Cusack? We move on.
Since you brought up the training, I don't have a problem with hiring people at entry level and paying for their training if they stay with us. Now, I recall in the past, we've had people that have gone through the training and then they went to a police department or someplace else. Has that continued to be an issue? Was that a one-off? And is there any way we can't make somebody work here, but I don't want to pay for somebody else to.
And I hear you.
From the training that we provide.
We did have grant money, and it was allowed that we couldn't get them into into the Sheriff's Academy at the time. So we put them into the Allentown Academy. We did lose, I believe, 4 of them. Yeah, 4. Right now, we only use the Sheriff's Academy.
Okay, good.
You know, we do benefit on the other end by hiring Act 120 officers that come in, they're already trained, and then we only have to send them for 2 weeks. But no, I'm not looking, even if I could get the money back, I'm going to pay your salary, I'm going to pay your education, and you're going to leave, and you're going to say, I want my $6,000 back. It's like, okay, that was pretty good. That's like somebody paying for you to go to college, and you just have to pay for the books.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Then the other question I had is vehicles. Do you anticipate any vehicle replacements? What do you have for that?
Well, what we're looking to do is, as I understand, the parks get involved with a leasing program. So we put money in the budget to explore that, to see if we could benefit by leasing. You know, we do have 2 vehicles that are 98,000 or ready to go, but we want to see if possibly we could save money through a leasing program.
Now, I don't recall us leasing vehicles in the past. Is that a new concept or?
Okay.
In 2023, we leased vehicles in the Parks Department. We had them outfitted so we could purchase extra vehicles. That's been working very good in the Parks Department. We're looking to see if there are savings to be expanded in that program.
Okay, usually we would buy like vehicles on a state contract. Is there something
It's-
similar for a lease program?
So there are certain programs. We have a new purchasing manager. Enterprise has been pitching us to expand their program and to actually take over the fleet. Some things with that are good, some things not so good. So we are working through the new purchasing manager, looking at CoStars to see what is available. We buy lots of Ford vehicles. The Ford Fleet Management Program is actually pretty good. I don't know that we need to do anything different. And we get all the benefits of having a managed fleet without. So we have to see where that all falls out. But we have money in his budget right now that would be enough to purchase or to lease, depending on where it was worked out better and what we got for outfitting and things like that.
So ultimately, how would you decide whether I would buy the vehicle or lease it? I think everybody goes through that in their.
So it depends on what the resale value is of the vehicle after the time it's up. For Parks Department, what ends up happening is the enterprise reaches out to Parks and says, hey, we know you have this vehicle. Would you like a new vehicle at the same lease price and we can resell your current vehicle? Well, then we would negotiate. We'd like to take this plow device off or whatever, and then we go from there. That's sort of how it's going to work in Parks. We actually got 2 extra vehicles because we did the leasing. That's how large the savings was.
And so you're looking to expand that into the sheriff's office?
We're looking to expand it countywide if it makes sense. If not, then that's okay too. We're trying to leverage everything we have right now with regard to vehicles to make sure we're doing it. There's new opportunities based on the market right now. We want to make sure we're leveraging as much as we can to save the taxpayers' money.
The issue on that is miles.
So the miles are actually very reasonable.
You mean they got off the
Into all of that.
36,000?
What was
They
that?
got off the 36,000?
They're very generous with the miles. They give us free tires, and there's some maintenance things that more than offset. So we're evaluating, down to brakes and tires. Okay. So.
I just had a question. I know with the police vehicles, Steve, that it's and they're going to be put under the police category, I'm sure.
They're interceptors, yes.
Yes, so the thing is, though, that they have to be outfitted a certain way.
Outfitting, they call that, yes.
Yeah, outfitting.
Yes.
And I thought I said they have to be outfitted a certain way.
Yeah.
I don't know, but anyway, I guess my feeling would be, and I'm glad you're looking at everything. Look at it all. That's your job. But I don't know. I guess in some cases, I could see like our human services, some of our vehicles being leased.
Human services will never be leased.
Oh,
Yes, we've explored this with Human Services. Because of the way they purchase vehicles and how their funding works, we have to purchase them and put them on depreciation.
okay.
So we weren't there, but since you
All right,
mentioned it.
well, speaking of that, lease, I remember, because I've personally leased, and I don't lease anymore. There are benefits and there are disadvantages, like anything else. A lease isn't a present. They're going to make money. In fact, leasing has become quite expensive in many cases. I know it's sometimes now it's cheaper with the upfront costs and to buy. But I guess what in your explorations, and you say you're looking down to the brakes and I'm sure the lug nuts and whatever, but at the end of the day, I just think in the case of the sheriff's vehicles, they get a lot of use, a lot of mileage, and I don't know what the lease companies, whoever it is for it, I know for sure they're going to make depreciation rates very favorable for themselves And I guess I'm just going to be interested to hear how this works out for our benefit.
So one of the things we are not good at is picking the sweet spot to unload a vehicle, which is the expertise that a fleet management company has for us. So and we're not selling, like I'm not selling my police interceptor to you, Mr. Heckman. I'm selling it to the thousands of other counties and police departments that work with Enterprise who may not be able to afford a new vehicle and want to buy one used. And they have a whole matrix that's set up, which is something we are much better at. Now, will that benefit us in the future? Maybe, it might not. So
Yeah,
that's
well,
why we're
the big
looking at,
question. That's the big question. I mean, I'm sure they have everything. We used to have dealerships, we'd get the things through, they'd order it from the company, and then we would have them maintain it, and we'd basically run our vehicles into the ground, which, there's no problem. They're generally heavy-duty vehicles. I mean, they're made to be run into the ground in some cases. And then they
run
end
them
up being,
100,000 miles and then get rid of them.
I'm sorry, what?
You run them 100,000 miles and get rid of them. We've been doing that for years. 100,000 miles, certain number of years is a sweet spot. Then we sell them and we get a new vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying 100,000 miles is still 100,000 miles. Also, I think there was a time, I forget when, I don't know how many years back, but some of our vehicles would go over 100,000 miles.
There are some, but now he's at 98,000 with one, and two, I'm sorry, two, that's right.
We've gotten rid of, I mean, we sell vehicles, get rid of vehicles and buy vehicles all the time. So, I mean, if he's at 98,000 miles, are you going to have all this worked out before he needs another vehicle?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working with Enterprise. We have had meetings with Koch 33 and several other people who can manage the Ford fleet program.
So Enterprise has a whole program for government vehicles.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That,
I
thank
told
you.
Fords.
Yeah.
Interesting. I just, look, I'm always just curious what their cut at the end is because, as I say, there's only one Santa Claus and nobody else is giving out things for free.
If it's not the best deal for the taxpayers in Northampton County, we won't be doing it.
Well, I would hope not. Thanks.
When you manage to sell fleet vehicles, there's going to be money made because you're going through the state bid. So they're gonna make some money, but they're not gonna make a killing on it.
Okay.
Okay? I did it. All right, who's up? Any other questions on that? All right, Sheriff, back to you. Any other questions for the sheriff?
But you mentioned about people coming in, but as of today, you have 10 vacancies.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And he already has some ready to go.
Right,
correct?
but, okay.
So you would say you have 10 vacancies, is that for January, or is that just as of now? In January, we'll have the numbers up, right?
He doesn't know.
I have 10 vacancies right now that I'm trying to fill
Okay.
as quickly as possible.
All right.
I probably won't do it until January 2nd.
Okay. All right.
Because we have to do the background. The physical agility is the first week of December, so there's no way to schedule psychological polygraphs and check with former employers.
It's probably best to have.
Where do you do the agility jet at?
We've been using Easton High School.
You've been using the track?
Yes.
It's much better than running up the hill around here.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming tonight and giving us your input. I appreciate it.
Good. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Where is Zach? The coroner is next.
Last person to let you down.
Oh,
To let you down.
okay. I want everybody to look at 104. Summary is 104. Tara, you got a question on summary?
Yep. It says here that you have an anticipated need for rising costs in not only contracts, but autopsies. How can you anticipate how many autopsies you're going to have?
Unfortunately, the baby boomers are dying off, and as the numbers of,
Tara,
Did you say fortunately
Tara.
or unfortunately?
we're on summary. We haven't gotten to the actual 105 yet.
Did he say fortunately?
You jumped over.
I jumped, I'm sorry. I really
I just, let's make sure we stay where we are. Let's stay on the summary first, which is 104, before we move over to 105. Any questions on 104 and Mr. Lake's summary? Staffing for you?
yes, sir, currently we're at full staff.
You just hired a new guy.
Yes, we did.
You let me know. Okay. If no questions on the summary, let's move over to 105. The coroner itself with page 97. Now, Tara, go for it.
How can you anticipate additional autopsies in the coming year?
Well, unfortunately, I can't predict exactly what we're going to have, but, historically, as the baby boomer population begins to die off, the numbers of deaths continue to go up, drug deaths continue to rise, and unfortunately, so too do suicides.
So are there some actuarial tables that you go by in terms of that kind of projection with the boomers?
Yeah, there are publications that have that in.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. I just thought maybe there was something else. I didn't anticipate you saying boomers.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's,
Fentanyl,
yeah.
Yes, sir.
how's that affecting what you're doing?
Well, certainly, the vast
increased.
majority of drug deaths that we see have fentanyl or one of the synthetic analogs of fentanyl, yes. And the cost of toxicology also continues to increase.
John Brown, I'll go to you first because I always bypass you.
Zach, how
sir.
stable, how many employees do you have and how stable have you been with being able to retain them?
So we had turnover in the office. There are a lot of people that often think that they want to do death investigation, when they start doing it, they realize it's really not for them. That's always is a challenge. Currently, we are at full staff. I'd like to, I'm thinking very positive. I think it's going to work out good, and I think we're stable, but, you never know.
It's always an ongoing challenge for you to.
Absolutely,
to-
yes.
To retain that, so is there anything else you would need in order to help further that cause?
Off the top of my head, I don't know of anything,
Okay, all right, thank you.
thank you.
As I work my way around, Mr. Heckman, I'll get over to you.
I just wondered, Zach, now it's been a few years, how's the facility working out space-wise, room? I mean, foresee any concerns going forward or something that may need to be addressed in the near future?
I do not. What I will tell you, and I have said it last year and the year before, I'm very grateful to the administration and council for putting this building at the forefront and doing it. It is an excellent building. It serves the residents of this county well, and it's been very, very good at doing that, and I don't anticipate any difficulties or problems with it. I think this is really something that stands as a evidence of how good of a project it was. It was built well, and also I think from the government standpoint, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, it tends to be that buildings are sometimes outsized before you even get to move in it, and this was done. A lot of thought was put into it, and it was a great project.
Well, and that's what I meant. I mean, certainly, obviously, I agree and supported it. I just wonder, with the influx, the county's has gotten larger, probably continue to get larger, and you mentioned your target population when it comes to who is probably on your actuarial table is going to go down next.
I'll have space for you.
That's okay. He's a realist, so am I. I just asked I just asked for, and you know, Zach, I always said, dignity with pictures. If there's any pictures, dignity. But I mean, no, so you're
Ron Heckman stuff.
satisfied going forward, given everything you know, like space-wise and that we're still doing good with that, everything?
I truly am, and I think this will serve the Northampton County for many years in the future. It's really, it was a well-thought-out project. I think there's nothing negative I could say about it.
No, not
It's-
negative.
Yeah,
It
I
was
mean, but
delayed a
even
long time, and I agreed when the executive brought it forward that, you know, even
Yeah.
at times, I know when I was in council, it was brought up, and you know as better than I do, that for one reason or another, it would get pushed to the side.
Yeah.
But I agreed that it had become time to move forward on the project. And I'm just glad that it's working, and I was just curious how it looks going forward, and you feel confident with it, so.
I truly do.
Great.
It's working out well, and it's well-sized.
As I
You
go to
don't
the
mind my
side.
humor.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Mr. Cusack?
Yeah, pooled and professional services, you went over budget this year, and I think you budgeted based on that for next year. What is that, and why was it over budget this year? It's,
Which one are you looking at, John?
I'm looking in the blue
6,600.
book, it's,
There's the object number.
98, I think.
98, yeah.
Yeah.
You had budgeted 550,000 and your project is 700,000. And then based off of that, you budgeted 700,000. I guess I'm wondering, why were you over budget in professional services this year? I'm fine with the number for next year, but
Yeah.
what caused the overage for the projected number for this year?
So unfortunately, the ability to predict the volume of cases that we have and the toxicology is difficult. The other thing was that came due is the service contract for the CAT scan machine was due, so that was in that line item as well. That was under warranty, and the warranty then is expired. And this is the service
That was
contract.
not anticipated, and that's why the increase happened this year? It was over for this year, that was my
Yes,
question.
that was, I take responsibility for that. Yes, I didn't anticipate that cost.
Then my other question is, you mentioned toxicology reports. Are we getting them done in a timely manner?
So, yes and no. I guess it depends on how you look at it. So there are some folks that will do presumptive tests. Those tests are several $100s, and that tells you that an opioid is present in the urine. So the problem with those tests are, there are people that will argue that you could sign out a death based on that. That's what's in the urine, so that's what's going to go through the body. When we do the testing, we do is on blood, so that's what's in your system. So what's in your system is obviously is what causes an individual's death. So the cost is very, very similar. It could be slightly higher, but I think that's a more thorough measurement when you're investigating death. Northampton County has taken an aggressive approach to in prosecuting drug delivery resulting in a death.
As we should.
Yeah, and as that continues, we need to do our due diligence and do the testing that we do to support that prosecution.
And you have an adequate amount in your budget to cover that?
I like to think I do, and I, with all due respect, it's hard to predict what we come across. One of the things that I will tell you, so when you ask if we are doing it in a timely fashion, there is a backlog of doing these cases, and what's complicated, and we don't just order a whole bunch of tests because that's a waste of money. So we'll order a battery of tests, and I'll wait and see what those results are. If we do not meet the criteria or find out what the cause of death is, then we send out for the next series of tests. We live in a society that everybody wants everything immediately. And with all due respect to families, yeah, I think we're writing history in what we do, and I'd rather be thorough and be accurate in what we're doing, so we're methodical and take our time in doing it, as to not waste funding, or, spend extra money and just ordering a bunch of tests and then waiting, then we get it back a little quicker. So we're doing it in steps. And if that comes back and it's negative, then we'll go on to other stuff such as histology, microscopic examination of tissue. But unfortunately, there are some cases, in fact, I have, I think, about 7 cases right now that we don't have a plausible cause of death on. And what they are they're synthetic forms of drugs that people are consuming that we don't even know what they are at this point. Wow. Yeah. So the labs, you have to look at, there's a library of tests and what they're seeing in what we call mass spec testing. And if it's not in that library, we can't identify it. So that's what is coming into the country.
Wow.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else for Zach? Go ahead, Tara.
Is that kind of like the zombie drugs that they have in
Well,
Philadelphia, where like, you know,
The zombie drug is also called Rompin and xylazine. So that is it's like a sedative. It's actually not an opioid drug. But if you take enough, excuse
it's
me,
like a tranquilizer or something?
it's a tranquilizer, yeah. It's used for large animals.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so you need about, like in excess of 500 nanograms per milliliter to be fatal.
But you can identify that?
Yes.
So these are drugs that we don't even know what they are?
Correct.
Oy.
Have you had any problems with families getting upset with you?
Yes,
Okay.
on a weekly basis, sir. I do my best to deal with the families. Hopefully you don't get calls on it, and if you do, I'm very sorry. I know our administration will get an occasional call. It's hard pleasing people, and you have to understand that nobody I deal with is happy. I've yet to meet a happy family. So we do our best to work with families to try to explain it to them. And like I said earlier, everybody expects everything like on TV in 20 minutes, and it doesn't happen.
I guess it all depends on the situation. You could be called to somebody's house who might died from natural causes or something else, and you do tests and things don't go the way they thought it would.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the coroner?
No, thank you.
All right, we're going to move over to coroner's vital statistics and improvement, 106 and 99. Sorry about that. I thought I was getting you off the hook, but you ain't yet.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms.
So it says the budgetary fund balance reflects the unspent portion of the state-collected and restricted death certificate fees. What does that mean?
So this is under Act 122. These are funds that were set forth by the government, Pennsylvania government, to Department of Health to return to coroners to help us buy certain equipment that sometimes are not funded by the counties where we work. Northampton County has, generally been very good, but these funds have to be set in a restricted account. That's why they're in this account, and they can only be spent on certain items. So we do purchase items under this. In fact, we purchased a lot of new camera equipment for our staff under this item. The photography we use is used in court proceedings quite often, so having quality photographs are necessary. So that's restricted funds. That's what that is.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, sir. I appreciate your service.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I know.
Public defender?
Naria couldn't be here today, so I'm going to stand in. I'm going to stand in. She'll be happy to come back and talk to council if council has any questions. This budget has really no operational changes except for a very small change with regard to transportation. However, the 9% increase is the part-time staff member that council added earlier this year that is now in the 2024 budget. And happy to say, without bonuses, steps, or anything fancy, the office is 100% filled, vacancies, and all on step one. Wow. With the new people.
What is our staffing?
I don't recall what her number is. If you look on
Page
page,
17?
yes, you'll be able to see what her full complement is. I don't recall it right now because there was that new part-timer added.
In R06?
And 16 and a half, if we approve it, part-time.
Correct. Although it's already approved, the new part-time
We
position.
already approved it.
Yeah.
Steve usually reminds me what resolutions I voted for and didn't.
He
vote for.
told us before he approved it. Okay.
Okay, good.
Any questions for Mr. Barron? If not, if we need to call Noria back, we will ask her to come back. Any questions? All right, let's move on. Corrections. Is he back there?
He's behind the pole.
James? Sir. I like the way he says, sir.
He's behind the pole, so if he throws anything.
Good evening, Jim Costora, Director of Corrections, Northampton County Prison.
Summary, 108? I'm sorry. And 102. Staffing, Mr. Kosachi.
Right now, our staffing is in corrections. We are at 39. We need 39 correctional officers at this time. 1 clerical.
So then when you look at that 277, you're saying 39 correctional officers, not,
I need 39 correctional officers. I'm down 39 correctional officers.
and 1 clerical.
1 clerical.
Thanks. So I just want to confirm that.
Questions? Mr. Cusack?
The issue was raised earlier about the medical, and I guess I
No, it's questions.
believe it's reflected in professional services. We had budgeted in 2023, 3.75, and the projected is 4.5. And then you're projecting an additional increase for 2024 to 4.9. Is that as a result of the contract that we have, or is there any reason we're seeing an increase there?
That is not because of the contract. There is a reasoning, and that is the clients that are involved in the medical attention. They need a higher level of medical, and that cannot be given in the institution. And their care needs to be, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
Their care needs to be outsourced to the correct personnel out in the hospitals.
So these are people we have to send out for treatment elsewhere?
Correct.
To elaborate, there are some of our folks going to dialysis.
That could be one example, yes.
That's an outsource that you can only take to dialysis to do. And I knew that was going to be a big expense along with anything else we have to do. Because you have to send 2 guys with them, correct?
Correct.
So you can see the numbers climbing there. That's just one small example. Yes, Mr. Heckman?
Just, I know you send the correction officers, but does the sheriff get, you use the sheriff deputies sometimes to take them, depending on what your staffing, situation or?
They are a main source of medical transports and/or transports inside to the hospitals or to care, but we are the emergency transports because we are on site. So we would take them to the hospital if need be, and then covered by the sheriffs. We work very well together.
Okay, yeah, that's why I wondered, I was curious when the sheriffs would take it.
They do.
But if it's an emergency, you've got to get.
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
If they're transporting the squad, does our guys go with them?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Goffredo?
You said you're short 39 positions?
Correct.
Out of how many total positions? I'm just trying.
For correctional officers, 212.
212. So what kind of services are you not able to fulfill, or how do you make up for missing out for a significant amount of your staff, 40 people, 39 people? What kind of, where are you hurting? What kind of problems do you guys face with having that kind of shortage?
Well, just to start off, the folks that sign on for the positions, they know what's entailed when they sign on to be correctional officers. They know the job descriptions, they know the pay, they know the benefits, but they're on a year probation. And somewhere within that year, it's a tough decision to work in that environment. And usually we lose a lot of them right at the first year. Never used to be the case, but that's what I'm up against now. So we are getting the classes. HR is assisting us. We are getting the bodies. We have 10 to 15 in the class. We have a class going on right now. We have one coming up in November. We're filling the classes. It's staying in the realization of what corrections is all about inside those walls. It's a very tough environment.
I understand that. And I guess, let me rephrase my question.
Okay.
40 people is a significant amount. How are we still able to do, or are you still be able to do your job, or are there areas where you have to sacrifice with not having a full staff? And if you are able to get by, do we need all 40 of those positions? Are there positions that can be eliminated from there, so then the possibility of possibly paying those men more could be brought into play without having to really change the foundation of the budget?
Well, the women and men that work there, we have, they are working mandates to cover it right now. So that's how we are covering the positions. It's a very tight group, and that's how they're covering it right now. They know we have to stay and we have to mandate folks to accomplish it.
So they make it up through overtime hours?
Through overtime, correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In line with that, if I may.
Go ahead.
Do you have certain requirements to have so many corrections officers per population?
Correct.
Can you just give me an idea of that right now?
I will not.
All right, well, you can.
Thank you.
No,
I just, it's just security for security purposes, but we have enough to fill our tiers, our complement, our certain classifications, our medical personnel. So we have a lot going on there, and we do need to fill those positions.
Okay, well, no, and
We can move on
It
to that
wasn't a-
question.
it wasn't anything meant other than.
Oh, I understand.
curious.
I understand, yes.
Are we, the various units, the tiers, have you had to realign those, or are they all open, or do we have, I know in the past, sometimes they close a certain area if,
Well, it depends on what type of clients we have in there.
yeah.
So we have, our classification dictates if we can put some of the residents together and/or we have to keep them separate. And mental health is an issue, and we have to make sure that we take care of those folks also. So there's all kinds of concerns. There's medical concerns, and then you can break that down into classifications. So you're talking, there could be over 20 or 20-some different classifications inside the institution.
So I know we did some improvements in the past, and opened up. So we're basically using all of the capacity at this point, for the most part, of the prison.
That is correct.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have an empty section. And I understand you're getting not just the mental health area, but I think the county prison, the prisoners themselves, some of the difficulty levels and are much more than maybe years past. I know in talking to some folks who've worked in prisons at Monroe County, I know the county, people refer to the county jail, but the folks that you're getting in as inmates, some of them are pretty tough.
That through experience and being educated into that field and into the, to know what to look for.
Yeah.
So we're getting different experiences and it does help us.
Thank you. That's all I.
Is the West Eastern site, are we using that?
Yes, we are.
We don't have any other off-site places, do we?
No, sir.
Not at this point, okay.
No, sir.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Cusack?
Real quick, the Chester County case, I'm sure you're familiar with. In light of that, did we review our protocols in case Spider-Man is one of your prisoners?
We have. That's a good question. We, monitoring is what is our best improvement, and keeping officers being alert on their posts is, that's detail. Plus, if we have Spider-Man, their recreation is right by my office, so I'm an extra set of eyes up there. Hopefully, it won't come to that.
I would hope not. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you a question. If we have a borderline juvenile, does he go to your place or does he go over to the other place? It all depends on the crime? Okay.
Yes, sir. It depends on the crime. Yes, it does.
I didn't want to put you in a...
That's okay, and the understanding of the courts make that call.
Okay, clarification from there. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Kosojic? Thank you, sir, for your service.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
We're going to court service summary. Mr. Brown, I do believe it's your turn. 109. Let's look at the... Mike Kenny's in front of us. Questions on just 109. No questions for 109 from anybody? Okay. Let's move on to Court Services Administration 110 and 105. I see you're adequately staffed in the back in case there's any questions. I see everybody. Hi, ladies.
They're my protection.
They're your protection. You're going to need it. Court Administration. Questions on that?
Court services.
I'm sorry. We're on administration, Mr. Brown. 110, 105.
You have three, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You
You have three people for court administration, three full-time positions, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah, they're all full right now?
And the office of Will down one.
Oh, no, I meant you, I'm just talking about you right now.
Oh, this is me.
Three, you have three?
Yep.
Okay, you got your three. All right, I'm just checking, as we go through, you'll get it from different people, certain vacancies, different areas, and trying to keep track.
Any other questions on Court Services Administration 110 or 105? No? All right, let's move on to Civil Summary 111. Any questions for that? If we don't, I think somebody just escaped with no questions. now, that's civil summaries, I said. Now we're doing civil. 112. On civil. Go ahead.
Could we get a little bit more? I'm just curious about the operating due to anticipated fees associated with the implementation of an online document printing and filing.
We're in the preliminary
Yeah, just a
portion of that right now. We're looking at the filing and working our way through that right now.
Is that associated with what Mr. Dertinger's been doing? He's doing the E-line, and it says anticipated fees associated with the implementation of online document. Is that something above and beyond what we get now because it'll be online? Or I'm just.
I don't want to put a number on it right now because we're still in the infant stages of it. And as we're looking at different counties, we're trying to figure out what's going to be best for our county.
Okay.
You're looking at this with your staff to see what works for them? Or you're just putting it out to see how it compares to the rest of the counties?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I misunderstood.
Anybody else got any questions on civil? Then I got civil automation, 113. Any questions on civil automation from anybody? Okay. Criminal summary, 114. Ken, how's your staffing up throughout as we start on this?
We're pretty good as it stands right now. But
Are you down?
One is in civil, one in wills and orphan, two in criminal, and archive is that full complement.
Wait, could you say that?
And we have one civil, one in wills, two in criminal, none in archives. And in criminal, we will be interviewing, and also in wills.
Okay. Any question on the criminal summary? We don't have any questions on that. We're going to go to criminal itself, 115. Questions, everybody? No questions on 115? All right, let's move on. Criminal elimination, 116 and 111. Any questions? In either side of the room? All right, register of wills, 117. And this, you said you're down one person here? Register of wills,
Yes.
one down, one person?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Kuziak.
My understanding, we have a new register of wills, and this might be her first budget meeting. Could you introduce?
She's not here this evening, unfortunately.
It's too bad.
We're just going to have to bring her back so they can say hi to her.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
Is there anything you need down there that, in addition?
No, in all the offices, we have a very professional staff and hardworking staff on a day-to-day basis. I think that they work well together, even cross offices. So I don't think we really need anything.
Okay. I don't see anybody in the back. No, just joking. Just agreeing with you. They're all smiling, so that must be pretty good. And if any of them have a question for us, feel free to ask at this point or any other time during this proceedings. All right? Register of wills, the summary. No questions on that? Let's move on to Register of wills 118. Doesn't look like much of a change.
No, very minimal.
Questions? I don't hear or see any questions on 118 or 112. We're moving to 119. Wills Automation. Any questions on those? No? Orphan Summary, 120. Any questions from Mr. Brown? Mr. Ken Brown, so I'll make sure we don't mess up with Mr. John Brown. If not, let's move on to 121, Orphans Court, at 115. Excuse me. Questions? No questions? We're going to move on to Orphans Court Automation, 123 and 118. No questions on that? All right, let's move on to Archives, 123, 118. We got everything we need down there, and we're moving along?
Doing well there. Doing well there.
Mr. Cusack?
So you're adding a position, what What was the need for that?
Well-
I know you had a retirement, and that was tough to replace.
Yeah,
but
that-
what's the,
The reason for that is that in all the row offices, we have deputies. That's the only office within the row offices that doesn't have a deputy, and that's henceforth the reason for that. And that's been for many years, and we just, feel it's good to make everything look uniform. That'd be a great way to do it.
but is there work, I mean, it's.
Oh, absolutely, it's work.
Work for that
It's,
person.
it's people, there's people right in and there right now that's all actually doing the work, overly. So, we like to make sure that we have a position for that.
Okay.
Other questions? How you making out digital, changing things to the digital, digitizing everything?
Oh, pretty good. There's up in that area, there's a lot of young people with great ideals, visions, looking forward, and in the archives, and they're very enthusiastic about making these changes.
Okay. No other questions on the archive? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, members of
Thank
the
you.
staff. Thank you for coming out and being bored by us.
Appreciate
Mr.
you.
Barron, you're doing the constables? Thank you, ladies. You can guys go
Yes,
beat
this
Kenny
is-
up now.
This is just the constable fees that are paid directly by the county for those who can't fulfill their obligation to the constables within 30 days.
That's 134, guys, and 139.
Does the state set the fee for their
No,
staff? Or do we-
Or do we-
The AOPC sets the fees. Those fees are laid out in the fee bill, and it is a state constitutional office, and they must be paid within 30 days. Folks who are incarcerated obviously have trouble with that, so the county foots the bill for that.
Yes, John.
On this one, just to go back to Mr. Brown's previous point, if you look at the revenue, we're projecting that the same, but if we look back at 2023, it's significantly less than what we had budgeted or anticipated. And then if you look at the expenditures, similar thing, the projection is significantly less than the budget, but then we're budgeting the same amount. Do we anticipate using constables more, or
It's,
why wasn't that reduced to reflect the 2023?
So it is a matter of how the MDJs handle the situations. This is all fees that are generated from the MDJs. So when those fees come together, sometimes magistrates say, well, pay my constable first before anything else, then fees don't ever come to us. Sometimes we end up with more. The courts are sometimes able to collect, sometimes not. We do the best we can with the information that we have from year to year. Sometimes we're accurate, sometimes we are not. It's very fluid, and it's not the best system, but we're stuck with it because it's a state law.
Are there any other questions? None? All right, let's move over to court systems and corrections cost allocations, 135, 140. If there's any questions, who do we ask about this?
Who would we ask questions?
Who do you ask
to?
about this? If we had questions.
If you have questions, I'll answer them.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for this?
He's the answer man.
We do not. This budget meeting is over. When are our next one?
Fred?
Hold on a second before we go.
Next
A reminder. Next Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yes. I don't know which it is. It's definitely Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, 4:30. Okay, guys. We have a meeting tomorrow.